Sid in the morning. The new show, Mischief and More. 77 WABC and the WABC radio app.
Come on, Pete.
Oh, yeah.
Start moving. Got to get me there.
This song doesn't get you going.
Nah.
Nothing will. The great Edwin Starr. Ha, ha. Though we have to get going ourselves with Rich Lowry. Come on.
Rich is right up now?
Yes, he is.
Okay, I listen to him all the time with you
My feet are
guys.
hurting mighty bad. Okay, so let's do it right now. Good morning to you, Rich Lowry.
Hey, how's it going?
Rich from the National Review, the editor of the esteemed National Review, started by the great William F. Buckley, walking in some big shoes there, Rich Lowry.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Hey, listen, and you're filling them very nicely, let me tell you.
Thank you.
I have nothing but the utmost respect for you, my friend.
Thank you.
And I will say this, you have a column out now. It's called Rich Lowry, the Madcap Caution of Donald Trump. I guess each publication entitles them differently, but that's one of them. And it's all encompassing about the Trump administration and how he... Well, why don't you tell us about it, Rich?
Well, there's obviously a sheen of just zaniness all the time to this administration because of the tweets, because of the various controversies, because the threats Trump is constantly making. But he's as we just saw over the weekend, he's very cautious in the Middle East. He doesn't want another war. He has an expansionary fiscal policy all about not having any sort of risk to the economic recovery. And that you'd sort of, if it weren't for the way Trump acts, you sort of look and say this is a cautious, incrementalist, center-right administration. So I think that's what the substance is, and then you have Trump's personal stuff layered on top of it, which gives everyone a different impression.
Interesting. And now let me just ask you quickly about that particular decision that he made not to go to war with Iran. I mean, he can't win. A lot of people on the left now saying he's indecisive, he doesn't know what he's doing. And some people on the right are saying he should have gone through with the attack. And what does Rich Lowry say?
Well, my initial instinct was once Iran hit the two tankers, we probably had to hit them. And then after they went after the drone, I was like, oh, now we really have to hit them. But the one thing that gave me pause is they obviously seemed really trying to goad us into hitting them. So it made me wonder if that was such a good idea or not. Yeah. But there needs to be some sort of red line, though. And I'm fine, doing it in a more subtle way, doing it with cyber if appropriate. But unless they know there's some sort of serious deterrent threat, they're going to keep doing it. Now, there's obviously a red line around our troops. The Iranians said they could have shot down a manned plane, and they didn't. And Trump's made it very clear publicly if they do that, they're really going to get suffer some pain. But I'm not sure what we're doing is enough or not. And Iran, at the end of the day, they have the big incentive not to get into a major war with the United States, because we don't need to invade and occupy Tehran to cause massive, sort of decades-long damage to that country if that's what happens.
Rich, Russ Salzberg here. Let me ask you this. Trump's decision, not to attack, do you think, or I shouldn't say not do you think, how much of that do you feel was based upon the fact that, he's thinking about the election and how that'll affect things?
I don't know. I don't think hitting a sort of a retaliatory strike like that, I think tends to be pretty popular. It's the wars that drag on and on that people get sick and tired of. I think it's a genuine, cautious instinct. He worried about potentially it spiraling out of control, and he did campaign against the so-called endless wars, against wars in the Middle East, and this in his mind would have been a step towards something similar. So I think that accounted for his caution. I don't get the thing about 150 Iranians dead. It just didn't seem like what we've heard in the reporting about what the attack was, that you would have had that many casualties. Maybe that was the upper bound of the maximum, but that felt to me a little bit more like a pretext, and the real reason why I didn't want to do it, just this innate caution.
Plus, there would have been military casualties, which mitigates the damage, I think, anyway. But I like the hack and whack, hack their military computer systems and whack them economically. until they kill, they take some fatal action against one of our service people, and then all bets are off. And then I think they'll have hell to pay, Rich Lowry.
Well, there was a lot of doubt when we pulled out of the deal that we on our own could cause enough pain to the Iranians to make it worthwhile. That question is settled. They are hurting. There's no doubt that we're really crashing their economy. The question now is what to do with it. Are we going to be able to get another deal? Is there going to be some military strike down the line? That's kind of the larger strategic question that's still up in the air.
Yes, of course, and he reserves the right to any military action in the future. Rich, if we could segue to the border. You have a couple of things. One of them, the latest mantra is that people are being tortured at the border, when the quote from one of the doctors was that the detention facilities right now could be compared to torture facilities, as though they weren't aware that we were going to be overwhelmed and it would be uncomfortable for a lot of the illegal immigrants that are being caught at the border now. You have that, and also the fact that the president has postponed his announced roundup of 1 million illegals, those that have cases that have been litigated, who have received deportation orders. What are your thoughts on both of those policies?
Well, Congress, had the AOC last week comparing the facilities to concentration camps, and the condition, and some of them are appalling. Congress should just tomorrow can appropriate more money so we can have more and better facilities down there. I mean, it just seems obvious to me that should happen. In terms of the roundup, I think this is kind of a typical thing of the way Trump talks. We're going to round up 1 million. I mean, if we could do that, we should do it. But it's easier said than done. And I think what we're talking about is actually going after some of these migrants who come over and they have orders of removal and they're never heard from again. Very few of them are removed. So now we're going to make an effort to actually get them out of the country. But it's going to be a slow and steady thing. Even if we start making that a priority, you're not going to be able to get a million out in short order. But Trump is, we talked about in the show before, he's just desperate to do something about the border. It's really hard to do without Congress changing the asylum rules. And I think where he's made the most progress is working the Mexicans and working some of those Northern Triangle countries to try to get them to stem the flow. But it's pathetic that we have to depend on foreign countries, in effect, to defend our own border because our own rules are so insane and we just wave people into the country.
Rich, you mentioned AOC before. Every time she opens up her mouth, I just, shake my head. But with this concentration camp business, I take it a little personally because I had a stepfather who was a concentration camp survivor. And I mean, he lost his businesses, his wife, his children, his siblings. He lost everything. And when you get a moron like this, what shocks me is not just somebody saying such a stupid, irrational remark, but what shocks me is that there's not a bigger uproar about the remarks that she made.
Yeah, and it's maybe you, as you're sitting in your living room doing yoga or whatever she was doing in this Instagram live feed, you say something dumb, and then you back off of it. But she's continued to defend it on the idiotic idea that the academic definition of a concentration camp is just a place where people are held,
Yeah.
But we're holding people at the border because they're coming here voluntarily. They're only being held temporarily, and we release them into the country, never to be seen again, which is the exact opposite of not just what the Nazis did, but that everyone else who ran concentration camp did. We're not going out of a way to round up a certain ethnicity and hold them and deny their rights.
Well, they're also not sending people into showers that are going to gas them at the detention center.
Right, and as you point out, it minimizes the profound and unspeakable evil of what those Nazi concentration camps really were. So she's got the knack, though. She's charismatic, she gets a lot of attention, and she says things that are just stupid and controversial enough to continue to garner a lot of attention. And I think this is going to be true for the duration with her. Which
is why I think, Rich, that this torture facility comment was designed to give her a little cover, to take a little bit of the pressure off her. See, I told you that they're torturing him at the border. That's just my own personal speculation. But, Rich, on the way out, I want to ask you about the Democrats were down in South Carolina this weekend to really appeal to the black voters in South Carolina. And you had Buttigieg has got some big problems in South Bend with black voters, and Biden is still sort of explaining away his remarks about working with segregationists in the past.
Yeah, so Buttigieg, it's interesting. This is finally beginning to surface a little bit. I have a colleague who went to Notre Dame, knows a lot about South Bend, and she always says, he's a terrible mayor. No one really likes him out there, and we're finally beginning to see some of that in the national debate. Biden, I get what he was getting at, and the fact is, you're a Democrat, you show up in the Senate in the 70s, and the committee chairmen are all segregationists, so, what are you going to do? Just not talk
right.
to them in the Senate lunchroom? But it was the worst example to bring up of working across the aisle, and it wasn't even working across the aisle, it was working with his own team, because the segregationists were Democrats.
Yeah.
But that just goes to his tone deafness, and another reason why I think he's a front runner, but he's kind of soft.
Yeah, I think he's feeble and he's gaffe prone, and he's apologizing and flip flop, and they're calling him Floppy Joe. So yeah, I don't think it's going to last too much longer. But anyway, the debates Wednesday and Thursday, I guess they'll be interesting, even though MSNBC is hosting them.
Yeah, there'll be an opportunity for a proverbial moment for someone. Mayor Pete skyrocketed, if that's the appropriate word, for bumping up 8 or 9 points in the polls based on a CNN town hall that got some more attention for him and drove some interest. There'll be a potential for people bumping around at 1 or 2% to do that this week. And then Biden, the proof is in the pudding. If your whole appeal is based on electability, you need to be a sterling performer on the big stage all the time. So we'll see whether that's true or not with him.
We're going to see, Rich. It's very interesting. Rich Lowry from the National Review, the brilliant Rich Lowry, I might add. I thank you very much for appearing on the Bernie and Sid Show with Russ Salzberg. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
See you, Russ.
Thank you, Rich.
All right, man. Back on the Bernie and Sid Show right after this.
Bernie and Sid in the morning. Talk Radio 77 WABC.